Here in the sweltering heat of Buenos Aires, there's an enormous crowd to see the third championship Grand Prix of 1981 at Argentina. And they're also here to give a joyous welcome to their national idol, Carlos Reutemann, that you can see in the Williams car, number 2, second in the right-hand rank. They're here at the 3.7-mile Admiral Brown circuit, which is very fast because although there's a twisty bit, and by the way, they're getting away for the warm-up lap before the start. This isn't the beginning of the race itself. There's 2 hairpin bends, but most of it's absolutely flat out. So there's a real chance that the turbocharged Renaults and the Ferraris will be able to exploit their superior power and score some desperately needed championship points. Because after Long Beach and Brazil, the top 4 drivers are all in British Ford Cosworth-powered cars. World champion Alan Jones and Carlos Reutemann are tying for first, a daunting 11 points ahead of Nelson Piquet, and that's Piquet on the right, and Riccardo Patrese, with Mario Andretti and Mark Sura tying for 5th. The all-conquering Williams team of Jones and Reutemann have finished first and second in the last 4 championship Grand Prix. But Reutemann disobeyed team orders to win in Brazil, so if they lead here, and by the way, watch the cars weaving and bobbing about on the straight here, that's because they're warming up their tyres ready for the start. And I was saying, if the Williams cars lead here in the Argentine, we'd expect Jones to be first. But this is Argentina, Reutemann's Argentinian, and today is his birthday. Now, fastest in practice has been the Brazilian driver, Nelson Piquet, in his Brabham, and he's been an amazing 4 seconds inside the lap record. Piquet on the right there, in spite of the new no skirts rule, which is supposed to slow the cars down. Second, it's Alain Prost, second of these 2 cars in the turbo Renault. Then it's the 2 Williams cars coming up into the picture now of last year's winner Alan Jones and Carlos Reutemann. 5th in the second of the 2 Renaults, René Arnoux. And 6th, the Mexican Hector Rebaque. So now, up to the line, it's a 53-lap race, and that's 196.9 miles. The lap record is held by Jacques Lafitte, and there is the pole position man on the left, fastest in practice, Nelson Piquet. Watch for the lights, the red, and then a few seconds later the green, and it'll be go. Trying, testing time for the drivers because they're watching the lights just as carefully as you and I are. And is Piquet going to get away well? Go! And Alan Jones has got a flyer. Alan Jones, number 1, the world champion in the Williams, looks as though he's nosing ahead of Nelson Piquet as they go up to the first right-hander, the recta principal, which leads into a left-hand bend and then into the long recta del fondo straight, and that in turn leads into the curve on, a flat-out 5th gear double 180-degree right-hander, and it's Alan Jones in the Williams leading Nelson Piquet in the Brabham. The world champion leads. Piquet right with him already. Piquet incidentally made a disastrous tyre choice at Brazil, as a result of which he finished well out of the points, and he's out for revenge, and it looks as though he's going to take Alan Jones, and it's Reutemann in 3rd position, and that's De Cesaris. De Cesaris, the Italian driver in the McLaren, has spun off and he rejoins. No, he doesn't. He's in real trouble. Throttle happy, spinning the car, and away he goes, and it's Piquet leading. We missed the actual point where Piquet passed Alan Jones, but he came right out of the slipstream of the Williams car of the world champion. And now Nelson Piquet from Brazil leads Alan Jones in the Williams. Reutemann is in 3rd position, the man who won in Brazil. Riccardo Patrese there, then Prost, then Arnoux, then Hector Rebaque, followed by Didier Pironi in the Ferrari, and the rest of the runners, 24 of them in all. Into lap 2. And now Piquet is already starting to stamp what looks like real superiority on the field. Piquet leading through. Jones. Piquet leads at the end of the lap. Then it's Jones, Reutemann. Behind Reutemann in fourth place, it's Riccardo Patrese. Then in fifth, the turbocharged Renault of Alain Prost, the yellow and white car. And as we look at number 5, Nelson Piquet, whose real name, incidentally, is Sotomayor. Piquet was the name he used when he started racing because his parents didn't approve of it and he didn't want them to know he was racing. But Nelson Piquet, as we know him so well in the international racing circuits, won 3 Grand Prix last year. And now look at the lead he has on the early second lap over Alan Jones, Reutemann behind, somebody going off, and there is one of the Lotuses coming through as Mark, and there's a bit missing, a bit's come off a car. One of the cars has lost a body panel, the tail, perhaps a front aerofoil, and the camera doesn't go with it, so I can't tell you who it was, but whoever it was has obviously kept moving, but he'll be in real trouble with aerodynamic loss of downforce on the car now that a part of it is missing. And it's Piquet still leading as they come up towards the end of the second lap, up to the toboggan, into the Orquilla, and there's Patrese, Prost, Rebaque, Arnoux, Pironi, Watson going through as Piquet number 5 leads. And I need hardly say that the Argentine crowd here, and there are an enormous number of them, are rooting very solidly indeed for number 2, Carlos Reutemann, who is in 3rd position behind Alan Jones, the world champion. There is Jones coming towards us. And you will recall, those of you who are motor racing aficionados, there goes Piquet, that Alan Jones finished 2nd in the previous Grand Prix in Brazil because Carlos Reutemann, a South American, chose to ignore team orders which were instructing him for the last 7 laps to let Jones through, and he won, and Jones didn't like it one little bit, understandably. Piquet, though, on his way out of the right-hander into the Recta del Lago, the straight which leads down to the chicane, and they're doing about 160 miles an hour, and Reutemann is right with Alan Jones, and Reutemann's going to take his team leader. Reutemann, number 2, the Argentine driver, is passing the world champion, and Alan Jones, for the 2nd race in succession, is seeing the back of Carlos Reutemann's car, and I should think when Reutemann completes this lap and the crowd sees that he's ahead of Alan Jones, they will go absolutely mad with excitement. Now, this is the twisted bit, the Mixtos, which is a 2nd gear section, very quick. It's Prost in 4th position still in the yellow and white Renault. And there is Reutemann. Now the crowd is going to see him. It's Hector Rebaque has got ahead of Patrese, and Hector Rebaque is up into... And listen to the crowd! A great swelling roar of approval bursts from thousands of Argentinian throats as they see their national hero, Carlos Reutemann, going through ahead of Alan Jones and up into 2nd position. There is Prost 4th, Rebaque is 5th, Patrese is 6th, Arnoux is 7th, and that is Nigel Mansell coming into the pits. Nigel Mansell, the Essex Lotus driver from Britain, who has made a great name for himself in Grand Prix racing this year, into the pits, and now there's another one of the turbocharged Ferraris of Didier Pironi has followed Nigel Mansell into the pits. As we look at the 2 Williams cars, there's Pironi. You get a good look at the Ferrari there. That's the new 1.5 litre V6 Ferrari, and we look now several cars into the pits. That's Keke Rosberg in the Fittipaldi, and Peter War in the white cap, the team leader, leading over the car. But Carlos Reutemann, now that he's got past Alan Jones, that was Piquet. So how much of a gap is there between Piquet as we look at Prost and Jones? And Alain Prost is now ahead of Alain Jones. Alain Prost, the young Frenchman in the Renault, has moved up behind Carlos Reutemann into third place, displacing Jones, who goes down to fourth. And behind Jones in fifth position is Hector Rebaque. So it's Reutemann second, Prost in the yellow Renault third, Jones number one in the white Williams in fourth position, and we look at number 15, Alain Prost, the Frenchman, in third position, and Hector Rebaque, the third of these three cars, that's the young Mexican, is in fifth position, and there's Riccardo Patrese sixth. Now, Hector Rebaque is driving a great race. That's number 6, the third of these three cars, the 25-year-old Mexican, only in his 32nd Grand Prix, and he's right up with the world champion, which shows how well these two Brabhams are going, because it looks to me as though Rebaque is starting to challenge Jones for second. As we watch Alain Prost going down the straight at some 160 miles an hour in the 500 horsepower turbocharged 1.5 litre Renault. Now, wish the cameras would look behind, and they do so. And that's it after 4 laps in this 53-lap race. Piquet, Reutemann, Jones, Prost fourth, Rebaque fifth, and Patrese in 6th position. And there is Prost on the right. He's pulling away all the time from Alain Jones. And that looks like Rebaque. Rebaque has got ahead of Alain Jones, so Jones is in real trouble. We missed that, but Hector Rebaque, the Mexican, is ahead of Alain Jones now, behind Prost, who is in third position. So Rebaque in fourth place. And I was talking about the Mexican, Hector Rebaque, as we look at number 15, Alain Prost, who is in third place, ahead of him Carlos Reutemann, number 2 second. And Rebaque looks to me as though, having got past Alain Jones, he's starting to close up on Prost, and this is quite incredible. I say quite incredible, and look at it. That's Rebaque, the second of these two cars. I say quite incredible because, frankly, he is not an absolute top-line Grand Prix World Championship standard driver. He's bought his way into the Brabham team. He's a very good driver, but he's not that brilliant. And he goes straight past Alain Prost with a superb outbraking manoeuvre as they come up to the hairpin before the mixtos, which leads onto the toboggan and the horquilla. And Rebaque is driving the race of his life, and I take it all back. That was a superb bit of driving, and now he's after Reutemann. It does not seem to me conceivable that Hector Rebaque can catch Carlos Reutemann, and even if he caught him, getting past him would be something very different indeed, with the Argentine in front of his home crowd. But the Brabham that Hector Rebaque is in has got a new suspension which enables the car. I'll try and explain it later on, but because it's all excitement now with Rebaque catching Reutemann in front of him and going for second place. This new suspension increases the downforce on the car, increases the adhesion of the tyres and the grip of the tyres on the corner, and we look at Alain Prost in fourth position, and Hector Rebaque is making the maximum use of that downforce and grip that he's got, and he's certainly catching Carlos Reutemann. You can't see Reutemann, he's just to the right. There he comes. Piquet leading. Reutemann, the first of these cars, is in second place. The man who has driven in more Grand Prix than anybody who is driving now. There is Prost. Between them is Hector Rebaque. And coming up to the chicane at the end of the long straight, past the municipal rubbish dump, incidentally, goes Hector Rebaque. Up to the chicane, down to the second gear hairpin. This is the first of the two hairpins. And it was from this point on that Rebaque started to catch Reutemann, and then earlier on Prost, because of the tremendous adhesion of the Brabham. Try and look at the sides of the cars between the front wheels, and that's Marc Surer in the pits. Marc Surer, the Swiss driver in the ATS, into the pits. I don't know whether he's out of the race, but maybe we'll see him later if he rejoins. But this is the excitement. The leader, Piquet, is well away. He's about 20 seconds ahead of this battle, but this is the excitement with Prost fourth in the background. Reutemann second, number 6, Hector Rebaque gaining on him. Williams versus Brabham, Argentine driver versus Mexican, Rebaque at the back versus Reutemann in the front, battling for second position. And Rebaque is drafting Reutemann. He's come out of his slipstream and he just goes straight past. Well, if you had asked me before this race began what a pretty unlikely situation would be, I would have said Brabham's in first and second positions. Not because I doubted that Nelson Piquet could be in the lead, but that I would have frankly disbelieved that Hector Rebaque, number 6, could possibly have got ahead of everybody else, and he's driven through the field up into second position. A brilliant achievement. And now, just as we have got used to the Williams cars dominating Grand Prix at the end of 1981 and all through this year so far, in first and second places, maybe we've now got to get used to a new scenario, because we have Brabham's first and second. Piquet leads, Rebaque, number 6, is in second place. Reutemann is in third position. Alain Prost in the Renault is still fourth, and we look at Rebaque and Reutemann, and this is Piquet, the leader. We've gone ahead up through the lap, about 25 seconds ahead on the circuit, and watch the steadiness of this Brabham, and while I try and explain to you about this suspension. There is a hydraulic device which is controlled by the driver. It is obligatory that when the car is static, hello, there's another casualty, another car casualty, and that's the ensign car of Marc Surer, the Swiss driver. There he goes. He's obviously blown his engine from the smoke at the back. And now we're watching Piquet catching Andrea De Cesaris, the young Italian driver in the Marlboro McLaren car, 21 years old. And I was trying to explain about the suspension of that Brabham that we're looking at now. It is mandatory that when the car is stationary, there shall be a 6 centimetres clearance between the lowest point of the car and the ground. And that is to prevent the effect that the skirts had before of creating enormous downforce. Now the Brabham team have overcome this because there is a hydraulic device in the car, and when it starts to move, it allows the car to sink almost to the ground, as a result of which they get greatly increased downforce. And at the end of the race, the driver operates a control. And there's Marc Surer at the back in these yellow overalls. He's taken his helmet off, and he's clearly out of the race as Piquet continues to gain on De Cesaris. And just to finish what I was telling you about the suspension, on the run-down lap, the driver operates a control, the hydraulic pressure reasserts itself on the suspension, the car rises to create the mandatory clearance of 6 centimetres, and everything is nice and legal. But that's the last thing that Piquet will be worrying about now. He knows he's in the lead, of course. He's getting pit signals all the way. He's just quite coolly and remorselessly driving his way through the field as he catches tail-enders. And he's coming now. Now watch the way he will go past De Cesaris. The flag marshal there is waving the blue flag to tell De Cesaris that there's somebody behind him who wants to pass. Not that he would have needed telling, because he would have seen Piquet in his mirrors. Piquet lapping through the field after 15 laps. Piquet now a long way ahead of Rebaque, with Reutemann third, then Prost in the Renault, Jones in the Williams, and René Arnoux. So the two Renaults are in third and sixth places. Alain Prost leading his team leader, René Arnoux, who is in sixth place. And let us watch a master at work, Nelson Piquet, and ticking away in the top right-hand corner of your screen is his lap time, and it'll stop at the end of the lap. And just for interest, the lap record here is held by Jacques Lafitte, the French driver, in a Ligier last year with a Ford Cosworth engine. This year he's in a Talbot Matra with a V12 engine. and his lap time was 1 minute 46.9, and that was a speed of 124.8 miles an hour. And symbolically, there is Lafitte in this year's car being passed by Nelson Piquet. So Nelson Piquet has just blown off the lap record holder, Jacques Lafitte, as though he was standing still. And his target is 1 minute 46.9 seconds to beat the lap record. Just lost the tail there just for a fraction, but he was well in control. Almost at the end of the lap, 1 minute 46.9 seconds, the target to beat Jacques Lafitte's lap record in the Ligier. And he's going to do it, he's certainly going to do it. He's closing up incidentally, and there's a story to come here. 1:46.04. So he's almost a second inside the lap record, and really he's cruising by his standards. You can tell from the line he's taking on the corners. He's leaving himself plenty of room on the apex. He's using all the circuit, and I can tell you, as he throws away a rip-off, he wasn't waving at the crowd there. All the drivers have a layer of rip-off transparencies over their visor, so that if they get flies on them, or grass or anything thrown up, they can pull the rip-off off, throw it away, and still have clear vision. Now, there's a needle match here, or there would be if car number 21, driven by Chico Serra, was a bit quicker, because for 2 years, Nelson Piquet there, who is a Brazilian, was vying against Chico Serra, the man in the white Fittipaldi car in front of him, to get top honours in the Formula 3 category. And it looked as though Chico Serra was going to win out. He had a lot of money behind him, much more than Piquet. But Piquet won out. Piquet got the Brabham Works drive. He got into Formula 1 2 years before Chico Serra. He is now vying for World Championship honours, is Nelson Piquet, whereas Chico Serra, a very good driver, is still a fledgling. And I think Chico Serra is going to suffer the indignity very soon of having number 5, the race leader, Nelson Piquet, in his Brabham, pass him with no trouble at all. Indeed he is, and there it is happening. So Piquet passed yet another driver. The only question, frankly, in this race now is not is Piquet fast enough, not is the Brabham fast enough, but will the Brabham last? We have no reason to believe that it won't last. It has been designed by that great British designer, South African actually, come to think of it, Gordon Murray. And into the pits comes Lafitte. Lafitte in trouble. I don't know what it is, but he's getting out of the car, so whatever the problem is, it's terminal as far as the motor car is concerned. And Lafitte disappointedly goes into his pit. And now this lot is Zunino, Villeneuve, Giacomelli in the number 23, the Alfa Romeo car, all of whom are shortly going to be lapped by Nelson Piquet, who is scything his way through this field. You've seen him pass Lafitte, you've seen him pass Serra. Now he's closing up on, and he's going to take the very, very quick V12 Alfa Romeo of Italian Bruno Giacomelli and lap him, which he's just done. Now ahead of him is the car that was so terrifyingly fast at Long Beach, the new 1.5 litre V6 Ferrari, driven by a man with 3 Grand Prix victories behind him, and that's the French-Canadian Gilles Villeneuve. The Scarlet Ferrari is in Nelson Piquet's sights now. The next car he attacks, and Villeneuve, who is a gentlemanly driver, I am sure will move over and let Piquet through when he sees him looming up large in his mirrors. And then Piquet will set about attacking the blue, unsponsored Tyrrell of the Argentine driver Riccardo Zunino, who, like Reutemann, is in front of his own crowd. So Piquet closing up on to lap the Ferrari of Gilles Villeneuve, and he is leading, of course, from Hector Rebaque with Reutemann in third position, Prost behind him, and then Alan Jones, René Arnoux and Riccardo Patrese in seventh place. Now compare the speeds and the handling of the Ferrari, that's the Scarlet car, and the Brabham, because this is where Nelson Piquet will indubitably take, yes, there's Villeneuve moving over to let Piquet through. He's been lapped. So that's a Ford Cosworth V8 engined car. This one has passed the Ferrari engined car, and now Piquet will have no bother at all with Zunino because he's very, very much past a car. And any time I see something like that happen, I think, and I know I've often said it, of the people who say you never see any passing in Formula One these days. Well, we've seen a great deal in this race, and there's more to come, because now Piquet's closing up on Jan Lammers, the Dutchman in the ATS German car, although it's British built, that we saw in the pits earlier on in the race. Watch Piquet. This is a real motor racing craftsman. Lapping steadily, well within himself, but under the lap record, lap after lap. And I caught a flash of an orange car there. Now that's either, yeah, it's Siegfried Starr, the Italian with the German sounding name, who's got Jan Lammers challenging him, and behind Jan Lammers and ahead of Zunino and Villeneuve and Giacomelli is number 5 there, Nelson Piquet, up with Lammers, about to lap him, and then Piquet will have lapped very nearly half the field. Past Lammers. Now it's the orange and white Arrows car of Starr, and this is the same kind of car, exactly the same kind of car as that in which Riccardo Patrese so brilliantly led the first point-scoring World Championship race of 1981 at Long Beach. Piquet, don't forget that behind Piquet, driving a really stirring race, out goes the blue flag again. That's good marshalling. And Piquet goes past Siegfried Starr, who immediately tucks in under his rear aerofoil, and he'll find a tremendous buffeting down on his front wing when he does that. Closes up on Piquet on braking, but now Piquet will start to pull away, because here, as we saw with Rebaque, is the part of the circuit where the Brabham's superb handling, because of that extra downforce, really shows up in terms of extra speed through this very tricky series of bends. This is a second gear section. They come into this left-hander, up into third gear, now up into fourth, up into fifth gear, into the toboggan. It's so called because it leads down to the Orquilla, and that's the long hairpin bend that they're into now. That in turn leads into a left-hander up from second gear, which was what Piquet was in, into fourth gear, now into fifth as he crosses the line, sees his signal, completes another lap, goes up to the recta principal, the right-hander, where he goes into fourth gear, into the left, and now he's up into this enormously long section of the circuit. The two straights joined by the 180-degree curve on, where he just keeps it in fifth, keeps his foot flat down on the accelerator and motors through the whole lot at something like 155, 160 miles an hour. An incredible testimony to the skill of the driver and the handling of the cars. And now we look at Carlos Reutemann, and you'll be able to compare the handling of a Williams car. This is the man who's in second place, the man who is tying for the lead in the World Championship, with his team leader Alan Jones, and he's doing that because he disobeyed team orders in Brazil and got a maximum 9 points. A man who has driven in the Ferrari works team, he has driven for Lotus, and that's Rosberg out of the race. We saw Rosberg in the pits earlier on. He's rejoined and now come back into the pits with some trouble which has put him out of the race altogether. I obviously can't tell you what it is, except that he's out. Probably an engine fault. Reutemann in his 132nd Grand Prix on his birthday, and this is Carlos Reutemann's 39th birthday. He's the second oldest man in the race, second only to Mario Andretti, who is 41 and who we haven't even seen. We've seen Giacomelli, but now watch the way the Williams flicks through these bends. Carlos Reutemann second. Third position, I'm sorry, because Hector Rebaque is there ahead of him. Just let's recheck on the positions then. Nelson Piquet leading his teammate, Hector Rebaque, who is ahead of this man in third position, Carlos Reutemann, the birthday boy, or the birthday man. And Reutemann is ahead of Alain Prost in the Renault, who is fourth at this stage of the race. Fifth is Alan Jones, still in the World Championship points, because you get to, there's Prost in the background. Then in sixth position it's René Arnoux, who has got ahead of Riccardo Patrese in the Arrows, who is seventh. Reutemann, third place. And you can see light. If you look underneath the part of the car between the front wheels, the side pods, you can see at some points of the circuit light underneath it, which means to say that it's well clear of the... That's 30 laps out of 53. And it's Prost fourth, behind Reutemann and Rebaque and Piquet. And in fifth position, Jones ahead of Arnoux. And Piquet now is a good distance ahead of Hector Rebaque, his teammate. And the positions at the front seem pretty static, because Reutemann clearly cannot do anything about the challenge of Hector Rebaque, who has caught him and passed him. So now, if there are to be any race changes, it will not be because of a fault of the driver, it'll be because of some problem with the car. And Reutemann on his way in third position in the Williams. As ever, driving very, very smoothly, very consistently as he comes into the Orquilla with the termination of yet another lap ahead of him. And he's still got a long, long way to go. Anything could still happen in this Argentine Grand Prix. And Piquet will obviously be hoping that nothing does happen, because he reckoned he was going to win in Brazil, until when the race started in wet conditions, he made that disastrous decision to fit slick tyres. Now there is Alan Jones. We've moved back down the field a bit, and we're looking at Alan Jones, who is in fifth position behind Carlos Reutemann. There is Alain Prost in the Renault. Now there is Reutemann, who is third. There is Prost, who is fourth. You can see how spread out they are. The next car round should be Alan Jones. Look for a white and green car. Yes, it's Alan Jones. Then behind Alan Jones is the Renault of René Arnoux. Behind René Arnoux is John Watson, the Ulsterman, the man from Northern Ireland. John Watson in the Marlboro McLaren car, who has really come back onto form this year. There he is, in the very distinctive red and white car in seventh place, gaining definitely on René Arnoux in the turbocharged Renault. That's great stuff. There's Alan Jones, the world champion. Now either Alan is not up to par today, or there is something wrong with the car. Maybe, and I'm guessing, he might have a bit of tyre pressure loss He might have a slipping clutch, his engine might have gone off, something might have happened to affect the handling, although the aerodynamic parts of the car, the wings look okay. But whatever it is, Alan Jones is not with the Williams driving to his usual standard here at the Admiral Brown circuit at Buenos Aires today. Because ahead of him, there's Nelson Piquet, there is Hector Rebaque, both of them in the Brabhams. There is Carlos Reutemann and there is Alain Prost. And so Alan Jones is only, there he is, number 1, which means world champion, in 5th position. But he's still in for the points. If he finished in 5th place, he would get 2 points for the World Championship, and every point counts at this and any other stage of the World Championship. 16 races in all. And this is race number 3 in the championship. Jones out of the right-hander, down the Recta del Lago, and all the time, John Watson, number 7 in the red and white Marlboro McLaren, is inching his way up on René Arnoux, number 16, the Frenchman in the turbocharged Renault. And Arnoux will need to watch it. It looks as though the handling of the Marlboro McLaren is better than the Renault at this circuit. There's Reutemann, yet another lap. Just a flick of the front there as he corrected a slide that was starting to develop. Now he's into the second gear, and the crowd... Now, that's significant. The crowd is gesticulating. Listen! The crowd's roaring. Something's happened. The crowd knows something that Reutemann doesn't. That's a sign. And when a South American crowd does that, it means they're urging... There's the answer. They've been urging Reutemann on because Hector Rebaque, the man who was in second, is out of the race. I don't know what the trouble is, but you can see for yourself that number 6, Hector Rebaque, is out of the running. So number 2 there, Carlos Reutemann, to the delight and the undisguised joy of his Argentinian countrymen, is up into second position with only Nelson Piquet between him and the thing that every Argentine person here will be dreaming of, a win for Reutemann. So Piquet, Reutemann up to second, Prost to third, Jones to fourth, René Arnoux moves up to 5th place, and John Watson gets into the points positions with 6th place. A great drive. And there is Piquet. Now, Piquet won't know or care very much that Reutemann has moved up into second position. And in spite of the fact that I got pretty excited and carried away by the fact that Rebaque had gone off and Reutemann had gone up into second position, Reutemann, of course, is still the same time behind Nelson Piquet, the man we're looking at now, as he was before. I don't know how quickly Reutemann is going in relation to Piquet. We knew that Piquet was just about 0.9 of a second inside the lap record, lapping he was lapping at 1:46.04, if my memory serves me right. And we don't know how quick Reutemann is, but he can't be that much quicker to be able to close the gap in the remaining race distance between himself and this man, the leader, Nelson Piquet, because well over 60% of the race has been completed now, and Reutemann would have to be lapping a great deal faster than he is to close up on, let alone get by this man, number 5, 28-year-old Nelson Piquet from Brazil, in his 37th Grand Prix, and on his way to his 4th Grand Prix win in his comparatively short Formula One World Championship career. Oh, that is John Watson, who had fought his way up to 6th position, and he, like several of the other drivers that we've seen, has obviously got trouble, comes into the pits, and he will already have lost his 6th position. And Piquet is very well now on his way to victory, because, oh, and that's significant. There's Teddy Mayer, the short man with the headgear and the heavy earphones on, leaning over Watson. It looks to me as though Watson is out of the race. So, to recap, as we all know, Carlos Reutemann is following Nelson Piquet here, who is really demonstrating the way to lead a Grand Prix and control it from the front. He is his own man, he is driving his own race in his own time, guided by his pit signals. Alistair Caldwell, his team manager, will, I'm sure, as ever, be timing Piquet every lap and timing his chief rivals on every lap, watching the gap, giving Piquet the signals, telling him exactly what the time differential between him and the man who is challenging him for the lead, but a long way back, Carlos Reutemann is. That was lap 36 when Watson came in, so 36 laps that was. It's a 53 lap race as Piquet comes up through the mixtos, up to the Orkia, down through the gearbox. He is in, as I talk to you, second gear, coming into the sweeping left-hander at the Largada to complete a lap and undoubtedly to get a signal from Alistair Caldwell and his team mechanics. Over the line, lap completed, Piquet on his way. Nelson Piquet, the 1980 Pro Car champion, finished in third equal position in the World Championship last year. Second last year, he's third at the moment in this year's championship. Piquet having won 3 Grand Prix in his career already. Second in the 1980 World Championship behind Alan Jones and ahead of Carlos Reutemann, and he's leading both of them at this moment. And if he wins this race, and by the way, you'll notice that the front of the Brabham has got an entirely new kind of aerofoil on it, the ends of which turn downwards, and there's obviously been a lot of wind tunnel work, and if he wins, there we are, you get a good look at it there, very distinctive front wing. And that will be to stop air spilling off the ends of the aerofoil and disturbing the aerodynamics. If he wins this race, he will get 9 points to add to the points that he already has, and that will move him well up into the championship. That's Giacomelli, the car that we just saw. Giacomelli, there's Alistair Caldwell. I talked about him earlier on, the man in the earbuffs. That's the man who's controlling the race by giving Nelson Piquet here exact signals about where he is in relation to the others. Piquet driving a beautifully relaxed, smooth, and that's number 33 is Patrick Tombé's car, the Theodore of the French driver Patrick Tombé. And now, since they did a lap, you see Giacomelli again, and Nelson Piquet is about to lap him for the second time. Bruno Giacomelli, they call him the Panda because that's exactly what he looks like, the little, swarthy, bulky Italian, the ex-Formula 2 champion of 1978. So, Piquet, the last of these cars, has got Giacomelli in front of him. That's Villeneuve in front of Giacomelli. And in front of Villeneuve is Siegfried Sturr. And you will remember that we saw Carlos Reutemann earlier on with Sturr. And so here is Piquet catching Villeneuve. And that shows how far. There is Reutemann. Reutemann passing Giacomelli. I'm sorry, I mistook Reutemann for Piquet when I was talking to you just now. It's Carlos Reutemann carving his way through the field. My apologies. He has passed Villeneuve. He has passed Giacomelli. Now he's closing up on Siegfried Sturr, and we've got the clock ticking. Now, remember that Piquet lapped a 1:46.04 compared with the lap record of 1:46.9. it will be interesting to see how Carlos Reutemann here, number 2, in second place, is lapping in terms of time in comparison with Piquet, who went round in 1:46.04. And if Reutemann catches Siegfried Sturr, I hope that the Italian moves over to let Reutemann through, because if he doesn't, he will be balking and slowing Reutemann, who closes right up to him on braking as they come towards the end of the lap, into the chicane, the left and now the right, which leads into the second gear hairpin before the mixed toss, and Siegfried Sturr must move over and let Reutemann through, or Reutemann will be losing time. Yes, Reutemann's coming out to pass. No, he doesn't, because Sturr slams the door in his face. Reutemann has to back off, drop back. He's lost time. 1:46.04 Reutemann is going for if he's faster than Piquet. There's Villeneuve behind him in the Ferrari. Behind Villeneuve, Giacomelli. Both of them being lapped by Reutemann in the Williams. And I'm afraid that Carlos has just got to stay where he is now until he gets out of the Orquilla here and into a wider, straighter part of the circuit where he will be able to take Siegfried Sturr. And the clock stops at 1:45.12. So in spite of being balked by Siegfried Sturr, Carlos Reutemann, who has at last got past the Italian, who is new to Formula 1 because last year he was in Formula 2, and in spite of being balked by Sturr, this man, number 2, Carlos Reutemann, has lapped nearly a second quicker than Nelson Piquet, who in turn was nearly a second quicker than the lap record. But 1 second per lap is not nearly enough for Carlos Reutemann to catch Nelson Piquet before the end of the race as he comes into the long right-hander. And somebody's lost it! Somebody's lost it! It's Villeneuve! Villeneuve does a full 360-degree and the rest spin in the 1.5 litre turbocharged Ferrari, and he lights it up. He's kept the engine running. He must have dipped the clutch, kept the engine running, and now he blasts his way back onto the circuit right in the face of Alan Jones, the world champion. Well, there was a bit of excitement to relieve any tedium that the marshals on that part of the circuit may have been feeling. And this is Alain Prost in third position. Number 15, the 26-year-old Frenchman from Saint-Germain, driving 12 years, ex-Formula 3 champion of Europe, the man who won the Formula 3 race at Monaco, and then went straight into the McLaren Formula 1 team last year and scored World Championship points in the first race of the year, the Argentine Grand Prix, which was the first Grand Prix of 1980. It's later this year. And then he scored again in Brazil. And this year, after litigation, quite literally, because McLaren didn't want to release him, Renault bought him out of his contract, and he's now a Frenchman in a French car, the turbocharged Renault, in third place in the Argentine Grand Prix in only his second year of Formula 1 World Championship racing. Piquet leads. Now he's ahead of De Cesaris, and that's Siegfried Sturr. So that means that with Piquet catching the Arrows car, he is an enormous distance ahead of Carlos Reutemann. And that means that in the closing stages of the race, Nelson Piquet has definitely only got to keep going to win it very convincingly indeed. And you can see from the smooth, effortless way he's driving that he's got absolutely no problem on the circuit. Watch him. The car on the right is De Angelis, followed by Patrese. It's not Sturr. Now this is interesting, and you see De Angelis has moved up into 6th position, so Patrese is 7th, and Piquet there has passed everybody, has lapped everybody up to 7th place. In 7th place ahead of him in the orange Arrows car is Riccardo Patrese. Ahead of Patrese there is De Angelis, the young Italian driver, Elio De Angelis. And now Piquet has got ahead of Patrese. He's lapped everybody up to 6th position, Elio De Angelis. And by the way, De Angelis is in the Lotus 81, not the Lotus 88, the new contentious car with the 2 chassis designed to maximise downforce. Because just as at Long Beach and just as at Brazil, when the Lotus 88 was wheeled out by Colin Chapman and the rest of the Lotus people, it was banned because of the contention that there is about whether it complies with the new rules for 1981, which say no skirts, and which Gordon Murray, the designer of this car, the Brabham, has got round so brilliantly with the adjustable hydraulic suspension system that I was telling you about earlier on. So Brabham have managed to sneak under the curtain of legality, as it were, whereas the Lotus 88 has not been able to. And it's a very sore Colin Chapman. Elio De Angelis 6th is about to be passed by number 5, race leader Nelson Piquet. Number 11 is De Angelis. 23 years old, comes from Rome. This is his 31st Grand Prix. And it's Nelson Piquet's 37th Grand Prix, so there's not much in it as far as experience is concerned, but Piquet is very definitely in the better car. And although I haven't mentioned it, it's worth recording that the weather could hardly be better here at the Admiral Brown circuit at Buenos Aires. The sun is shining, as you can see from the shadows on the cars. The flags are just limply fluttering. There's a bit of a breeze to keep the temperature down a bit. The circuit is absolutely dry. Piquet closing up on De Angelis. We're now with Carlos Reutemann in 2nd place, on his way to 6 points. Unless Piquet has trouble, and don't forget that Hector Rebaque had trouble. Piquet taking De Angelis. He's now lapped the 6th place man. The 5th, the 4th, the 3rd and the 2nd he has not lapped. Now whether he will be able to catch René Arnoux in the turbocharged Renault, who is in 5th place, I don't know. It doesn't really matter, of course. It doesn't make any difference to his race time, his race position, his World Championship points. It may do his ego a bit of good, but I don't think Nelson cares very much about that. He knows, without having to reassure himself in any way, that he's one of the finest drivers in the world today. And if he gets those 9 points, it will move him up to, I think, 3rd position in the World Championship. Piquet ahead of De Angelis, and if he gets those 9 points, it will definitely put him into 3rd place in the World Championship. And he's well into the closing stages of the race now, very definitely. Nelson Piquet, Brabham, leading Carlos Reutemann, Williams. 3rd, Alain Prost, Renault. And that's good news too, because we need variety in motor racing. And the Renaults, as we look at Piquet, have had a very thin season in 1981. They didn't start in South Africa because it was a non-championship race because of the contention between FISA, the governing body of the sport, and the Formula One Constructors Association. They did start at Long Beach but got no points. They did start at Brazil but got no points. So the fact that Prost in the Renault is in 3rd position and that René Arnoux in the 2nd Renault in 5th position is good news for motor racing. Good news for Nelson Piquet, the fact that he's almost home, on his way to his 4th Grand Prix victory in his career. 9 points. That will give him 13 points already, because he already has 4 points. But I mustn't count chickens before they're hatched, because Nelson Piquet has still yet to see the checkered flag, which means victory. into the long, swinging second gear right-hander. The crowd is waving. The checkered flag goes out, and Nelson Piquet wins the 1981 to the delight of his team, his mechanics. Nelson's got his 4th Grand Prix victory in his short career, and Carlos Reutemann, he's going to finish second, and now this will really please the crowd. Carlos Reutemann will get 6 points, and that will put him into the lead in the World Championship, and the crowd knows it and they love it. Watch them. Listen to them. Another Argentine roar, which makes any football crowd sound like a mouse, I can tell you. That is fantastic. Carlos Reutemann is in second place, so Brabham wins with Piquet at the wheel. A cheer for Carlos Reutemann, finishes second. There is Alain Prost in the turbocharged Renault in third position. Alan Jones will come home in fourth place as the crowd starts to go home, and Reutemann comes into the pits. Up goes the paper, and we've seen a lot of that to greet Reutemann today. René Arnoux in fifth position and Elio De Angelis sixth, and that's confirmation. And a bit of quick mental arithmetic tells me that Carlos Reutemann now leads the World Championship with 21 points, ahead of his teammate Alan Jones with 18 points in second position. Nelson Piquet moves up into third position in the World Championship with 13 points. In fourth position, it's Riccardo Patrese and Alain Prost with 4 points, and in sixth position, Mario Andretti, Sura and De Angelis with 3 points, as a very happy Nelson Piquet in the top position, Carlos Reutemann in second place, and Alain Prost in third position take the laurels after a very, very interesting Argentine Grand Prix. That's the end of the races away from Europe until the end of the season, and in 3 weeks' time we move to the first European Grand Prix at San Marino.